Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And we're here today to talk about U.S. expansion, and we're with great friend Allyson Stewart Allen from International Marketing Partners. How are you, Allyson?
I'm really well, Bill. How are you?
I am great. Well, thank you for coming today. And so we obviously we want to dig right into our topic about U.S. expansion. But first, can you introduce our audience to your organization and what you do to help companies expand?
Yeah, absolutely. So I set up a business called International Marketing Partners, and I've been running that business for a few decades now. And really, the goal is to focus on helping founders, other forms of leader, to really succeed internationally, but especially in the U.S. market. It's the world's biggest economy still. So whether we help them with qualitative research, quantitative research, strategic planning, marketing strategy. The goal ultimately is to help make sure that they've thought about all of their options. They avoid the minefield as they cross the Atlantic or across the Pacific, and really try to make sure that they do it successfully, rapidly, and profitably.
Fantastic. So, well, you clearly started International Marketing Partners when you were just a teenager, because if you've been
Of
doing it
course I did.
decades, yeah. but with that experience and seeing sort of so many companies expand, um, where are they challenged? Where are the landmines or the icebergs as they cross the ocean?
So there's many. I mean, one of the most obvious ones is their own assumptions that
Mm.
the U.S. works like it does for them at home, and that localizations aren't really needed. We can just do a copy paste. Our service, our product that we sell in other parts of the world, we just kind of install that in the U.S. and it'll all be fine. So that's one of the biggest problems, is that assumption checking. And you can't really challenge your assumptions unless you have data. And so going through the steps, learning, immersing yourself in the US market so you totally understand what the differences are and what the implications are is an absolute essential. But unfortunately, very often people are looking for shortcuts. And I'm sorry to say, there really aren't shortcuts. If you look at people like Lionel Messi or Emma Raducanu or any famous successful sports person, it's muscle memory. They put in the hours. You have to do that. So that's one of the things, is the assumptions. I think the other thing, in a way, is also going into the US market on the basis that you're going to be successful.
Mm.
So in terms of risk management, you've got to assume that this is going to work. And because we've processed and digested all the market research data, we have a really watertight marketing plan, we're going to be successful. And if you don't go in with that mindset, then you go in and you tiptoe and you're very incremental and you're kind of tentative and a bit apologetic and a bit unconfident. And you cannot be unconfident in the United States marketplace. So that's another example of, some of the things that I typically get to see.
That's really interesting. I was actually with a founder this past weekend, a good friend from the UK, who's been successful in the US, and they're just getting ready, and they have a team in the US now of 10 or 12 or so, and they're just getting ready to hire a sales manager or sales director to kind of lead the couple of sales reps that they have. And this very smart, very experienced executive who's had a successful exit. Um, uh, Said that they have stress tested their system enough so that if the hire doesn't work out, they'll still be okay.
Mm.
And how I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Obviously we're not necessarily talking about human resources and human capital, but how, what are your thoughts about something like that? Is being ready for maybe things to happen how you don't expect?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think resilience and the ability to be flexible is essential.
Hmm.
And, the best laid plans are often undone by
Hmm.
circumstances totally outside your control. It could be weather, it could be tariffs, it could be some other reasons that things happen. So you have to allow for a bit of improv,
Right.
and be, kind of ready to be nimble. And absolutely on the HR side, the best axiom that my clients tell me is we hire for attitude, not aptitude. So if you hire for attitude, then the person is open to learning, they're trainable, and they can acquire the aptitude. But if you only hire for aptitude and the attitude isn't there, it's never going to work. So I think looking for the right characteristics in the candidates you hire in the US is a totally a critical success factor.
Sure. So, as you were kind of talking about, how companies kind of come in with potentially some assumptions and yeah, kind of thinking they have it all figured out as they come in, or they'll just copy paste, as you said. It makes me think about how important ego is, right? You'd never cross an ocean, you'd never start a business if you didn't have some level of ego. Really, it's a really, really important sort of attribute. But it sounds like there can be too much ego, right? There can be times when our ego leads us to assume we know more than we do. But how do we manage that?
That's such a great question. I mean, one of the characteristics of the best leaders, whether they are expanding internationally or expanding at home, is self-awareness. And we know that there are many leaders that aren't interested necessarily in self-development and knowing how they come across. So hopefully you have evolved leaders in your business who are prepared to hear challenge, who invite challenge, and who may have humility in recognizing they may not have all the answers. And the leaders that recognize they don't have all the answers ultimately end up being the best leaders. They're the most motivating, they're the most human, and they're the reason people stay. And people leave bosses, they don't leave companies. So if they have high churn, it may be down to your leadership rather than your company.
Yeah, that makes me think of the book Radical Candor. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's just, yeah. Do you invite candor in your business? And yeah, are you sort of enabling or stifling people speaking and telling you what they think or see? Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah,
really
and educating you about the U.S. market. You may think you know everything there is to know already. You've already worked in the U.S. You've worked with Americans before. And it's part of why I wrote the book Working with Americans with Lainey Denslow, because we knew that sometimes people just assume, well, of course, especially for the UK, oh, they speak English in the US, it's the same.
Right.
Well, not really. So we find that a lot. Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's funny too, because you go around the UK and there are many forms of English just in the UK. And yeah, in the US being a little bit bigger, yeah, it's probably even more complex from a language standpoint. Yeah. So you mentioned your book with Lainey. So what inspired you and Lainey to write the book?
Well, it's a really good story. So originally, Lainey and I wanted to write a book for American business leaders and founders that would help them understand the business cultures around the world. And she and I went to a few very well-known publishers who said, we're not sure if Americans would read that book. And we thought, wow, that's surprising. Why wouldn't they read this book? And we didn't really get a reason. And we thought, well, let's flip it, because the commercial opportunity for the rest of the world is a bigger population. So let's write something to help the world understand the US. And we both assumed, oh, there must be 10 books on how to work with and negotiate with people from the US in business. And actually, believe it or not, there was not a book on the US business culture. So we thought, well, we've got to write this. So our first edition came out in June 2002, and our second edition came out in January 2020. And in the intervening roughly 18 years, even though cultures are glacial in how they change, it was enough time to actually realize that the US really had changed, that the business culture had become a bit more international, bigger, certain protocols, more informality had happened. And actually, you know, if you think about it, we were writing the second edition and updating it just at the start of COVID. So in late 2019, and we were seeing this phenomenon of people now are working from home 5 days a week. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we tried to write it in a way that means it could be fairly timeless. So while we didn't get into the nitty gritty of, you know, how do you manage in a post-COVID world, nonetheless, we have captured the differences over the 18 years.
Wow, that's really cool. Well, congratulations on the book, and thank you so much for taking the time today. Is it okay if I share your contact details and link to the book below?
Please do. Please
That-
do. I'd be delighted, whether it's the company or my LinkedIn profile and or the book. I'd be really happy with that. So please do that.
Thank you. And thank you for taking the time.
It's a pleasure, Bill. Thanks for the invitation.